All right, hey everyone, welcome back to D-Pod. We are doing our final BTS episode from our Chicago domestic team. And if you've been following, y'all know who that is. Hi, Marie.
Hello everybody.
Yay, Marie, you finally made it into the studio. You've literally never been here.
I have not. It looks really cool.
Nice. Well, welcome. 3 months into the project,
I know, wow.
We finally managed to get you on. So nice. All right. So yeah, it's a BTS episode. So we're going to get to know a little bit about your story. Okay. So yeah, like we've done for others, let's just start with a little bit of background, right? Like tell us about, your background, your upbringing.
Sure thing. So I grew up going to a really big church that had like 5 services. So I really was like encouraged seeing there's so many people who are really into reading the Bible and stuff. And that was my impression of church, is like just people gather on Sundays and then they go back and do their own thing. And that was sort of my impression of, church growing up. And that's also kind of, that's also sort of why I wasn't like too involved. Like there was a youth group with people my age, but then whenever they asked me to hang out, I'm like, oh, I'm already with my non-Christian friends, because I really was tight with my high school friends who were of all different kinds of faiths in college. In high school. So then, I just would only go to church on Sundays, and it wasn't until I came to college when I actually tried to struggle over if I really believe what the Bible claims about me and where I stand with God, and like when I actually became Christian.
So did you go to church like with your family, or like was it a family thing, or just you went on your own, or what did that look like?
Yeah. I would go with my mom, dad, and sister, and we would always go to the 11:30 service because my parents really wanted to like still eat at a reasonable time. So we would always go to like a 1 p.m. lunch right after the service ended, after we said our hellos and goodbyes to everybody.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. So are your parents believers?
Yeah. Actually, both of them started off non-Christian. My mom, she's Filipino, so she grew up Catholic, but no offense to anyone who's Catholic. She was, for her, she just one day was like, I just want to talk to God directly. I don't want to have to pray to a saint in order to do that. And actually that side of the family was really okay with that. And they were like, sure, go check out a Christian church if you would like. So then at that point onward, she just never looked back. She just like kept attending a non-denominational Christian church. And then my dad, he grew up, kind of Buddhist, kind of atheist, because he's half white, half Japanese. So then he had all different kinds of worldviews exposed to that. But he eventually chose Christianity because he said nothing else really had, like, I guess the answers, logically that he had. So then he ended up becoming Christian. And then my parents met each other, eventually through a mutual friend.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's nice.
So you are one of the kind of mixed race people on our team.
Yes.
Right? So you're mix of like white and Japanese and Filipino.
Yes.
Like what culture did you identify most with, if at all? Like I don't know if you can answer that, but growing up, what did you identify with?
Yeah, I would say, culturally, just American. I'm, very American. But I was exposed more to the Filipino side because I grew up in a town called San Bruno, which is where like the SFO airport is in California, if any of you guys have been.
The headquarters of YouTube too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, it is?
It's I grew up on the top of a hill, and it's at the bottom of the hill.
Oh,
the YouTube headquarters.
Yep.
And then my cousins, on the Filipino side, they all lived in Daly City, which is like the town that like is right next to it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so you had more like Filipino family members nearby, so you got exposed to that. Okay.
I did, and the food.
It's nice. I like Marie's adobo that she made for us
Chicken
once.
adobo.
Yes. So kind of coming back to your spiritual journey then. So you went to church, but did you identify? So you didn't identify as a Christian though, or like where were you kind of personally on that?
Yeah, personally, I was like, oh, the messages are nice. Like, it doesn't sound bad. But I never like personally connected. It was more just like I'm hearing kind of like a nice moral teaching, kind of nodding to it, and it does, agreeing to that, and then just kind of walking away. So I never tried to like apply it to my life, Monday through Saturday. It was just like, church was kind of like, I kind of approached it in that consumerist like perspective, just like coming, taking it in, and then like leaving, and then repeating the process again.
Got it. Okay. So when you came into college then, can you kind of take us through what that looked like? Like, were you looking for a church, and how did you, and then eventually you got plugged into the Davis Church there. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so actually I was looking on the UC Davis website during Welcome Week for a different event, and then I saw like a bunch of events by this one group. I'm like, how do you pronounce that? Koinonia? But the planning side of me just admired the fact that like, oh, this group, they're trying really hard. They have an event every day.
That's funny.
And then I realized the event that I wanted to go to had already happened. So then I was like, oh, this whatever it's called, it has an event called the Major Scoop, like eating ice cream while talking about your major.
Wow.
Yeah, get it, Major Scoop. So then I ended up going to that. And yeah, one thing that like made me sort of interested in Christianity, even from the get-go, was just seeing how everyone interacted with each other. Because at the time I came into UC Davis as a civil engineering major, and I really enjoyed hanging out with my engineering friends, but I felt like I had to be a certain kind of smart, or like I have a certain GPA in order to like, be accepted by them. But when I went to different coin events, I'm like, oh, no one's trying to impress each other. They're just themselves. So I found that really refreshing relationally. And actually that's what kind of made me curious. I'm like, what? Yeah, like they seem so secure. And what's that about?
So then that's sort of what got you plugged in. And I guess the fact that there were all these events that you could go to. So then what happened from there? Like, so you started coming to the events, the people were, easy to get to know. Where do you go from that to like making a decision to follow Jesus? Like, take us through that.
Yeah, it was sort of a long process because actually all my memories of freshman year were, those like big events I would make sure to go to. But I also was involved in 2 engineering clubs. So I only came to like our church events, which like our major church events. So that would be like Sunday worship service. And then we call it, TFN, like the Friday night. And then I wouldn't go for any of like the study halls or like the fun outings or anything. So I was one of those people who kind of like, was in and out. And then I wasn't there for a lot of like just the lingering and fellowship parts. And then, so that's kind of how I was throughout freshman year. And there wasn't much spiritual movement. And at the same time, I was part of the engineering club. So then I got like more involved in that. And in a way, I kind of got what I wanted. In sophomore year, I became vice president of one of those engineering clubs. And along with that, there were just so many things that I thought like, oh, like I made it or I accomplished. And then I realized like, wow, I still feel kind of like that, like what's next feeling. And nothing I was like going after was sort of satisfying that. And then also at the same time, there was a moment because I was, throughout that also, I should explain, I was sort of living a double life. Like I would go and I guess do these like spiritual things on Fridays and Sundays, but then I was part of the party scene and different things like that. And it was really tiring actually to try keep up with all of that and try be like, I don't know, like, oh yeah, I'm the person who's always like going to church, but then I'm also the person who's like, partying hard the night before and stuff like that. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have heard of like Psalm 32, just that feeling of like, God's hand being heavy on me and kind of like convicting me of like the way that I was living and trying to control and be the master of my own life. But like at the same time, ironically, just like trying to push him out. And then, there was one party I went to where I was just like, I was like extra out of it. And I had the moment of just like, what am I doing? Like who am I? And kind of thinking of the more deeper questions. And that was sophomore year. And then a little bit after that as well, I went to the winter retreat, my sophomore year. And right before that, actually, like 2 older people I really looked up to growing up, they both suddenly passed away. And then also my cousin, who was 20 at the time, he had a heart condition. So then, I was kind of at a place also of like, oh, wow, I'm like young and I'm pursuing all these things. But then it's like, what will actually happen after I die? And like, what would I say to God if I ended up standing in front of him? So then, I went into the retreat with that kind of heart. And I think God really personally spoke to me during the retreat. And I can't say I actually made my salvation decision at that retreat, but it was more like, I remember praying a prayer of like, okay, God, like I see what my life is like with me in the driver's seat. So I'm going to give you the keys and I'll actually try that and let's see what happens. And I just remember like every day waking up after the retreat with this like feeling of like, whoa, I don't know how to live life. Can you like show me, God? And there was kind of like that retreat and that prayer, I think, ignited sort of like a hunger I didn't have before for God's word and like being with his people. So then beyond Friday and Sundays, that's when I actually started like coming to DTs and like trying to fellowship with like other believers. And by spring break, we had like a mission trip to University of British Columbia. It was a sophomore trip. So I'm class of 2016. So it was 2016 and 2014. And we drove from Davis to Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was, it was, I think 18 hours total. And we didn't have our Seattle church there yet. So I remember we did go to UW, but we prayed for the campus. Praying for whoever.
Before it became a church plant.
Yeah. We were just praying for whoever, we would end up sending here that like, they could kind of, be a channel of blessing there and stuff. Yeah. So whenever I see Seattle people, actually, sometimes I think about that moment and I'm just like, oh, I prayed for you like 10 years ago, whatever that was. I guess 9 years ago. Yeah. That's crazy. At the UBC trip also, I think there was also a hunger to like, not just take in God's word for myself, but just to like share that like everything I had been experiencing. So then that's the first trip where I actually tried to like do outreach and try like share my faith with people. And there was a lot of like rejection and a lot of awkward conversations. But then there was also, from that trip, just a sense of like, oh, wow, like, without God, it is kind of like life is just really like meaningless, or you're going to have to try find it in like some other way, shape or form. And did
you get that from talking with the students? Is that what you were feeling in response to talking with them, or?
There was one particular student I was doing solarium with. I don't think we haven't really done it at U Chicago, but it's like a series of pictures, and then you ask the person to like point out to the pictures of like, oh, what describes you? What describes your life? And he pointed out all of the like kind of like the rain, and like there was like this one animal that was like, I think it was a lizard that was like biting into something and different things like that. I was just like, oh man, like. I'm like, are you okay? Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I realized like, oh wow, like I think without God, it's like life really is kind of like those pictures that that student was pointing to.
Yeah. So just kind of like summarize what you said. It sounded like, as you're living your life in college, on the one hand, you're getting the things you want, and then not feeling fully satisfied by it. And then there's things that you're doing that you're regretting and kind of like, why am I doing this? And maybe hitting sort of a rock bottom moment with regards to that, right? And then you mentioned how, there were several deaths around you, and you kind of thought about, life, and that primed you for this retreat where you were like, kind of took the first steps toward saying, God, like I'm not a good driver of my own life. I'm not a good Lord over my own life, right? And so, but then you mentioned that you're not maybe you wouldn't describe that as the point at which you made your salvation decision. So could you go into that a little bit more, or like when was that then, or kind of how would you talk about that now? How did that resolve for you, I guess?
Yeah. So then, like I said, there were a lot of I guess moments where like my spiritual hunger was ignited after the retreat, and I would say there was there was like the pretty much the month after that. I can't point to I'm one of those people, I can't point to like a specific prayer or time, but then I found myself like actually trying to drop the party scene, trying to like, or looking at people in like a whole like different way, like not as like my competitors or, you know, something, but like as people to like love on and try to share the gospel with and everything. So then I would say, in like the month after the retreat is kind of when everything clicked and I was like, okay, God, like I was saying, I was just trying this out, but like I want the rest of my life to be like this.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, a kind of a memorable thing from C.S. Lewis's own kind of autobiography and his story is that like he describes like a train ride in which like he knows he got on not being a believer and then he got off being a believer and he doesn't know exactly when it happened. Right? So it's something like that. It's something like, and then there were significant things that happened along the way, right? That helped you make that decision and make the realizations that you needed to. So yeah.
You mean low-key, I kind of wish sometimes I would have like, I'm like, oh, March 15th of 20-something. Sometimes I wish I did.
9:32 p.m. Yeah. It's kind of nice when it's like you can just cleanly say it, but you know, it's sort of like that was a very spiritually intense period of my life right there, and God spoke to me in these different ways. So, yeah, that's really neat. And so, kind of maybe I can ask you a little bit about kind of coming into our church, our Davis Church. I'm not too familiar with our Davis Church. Actually, my main interaction with the Davis Church throughout my undergrad days was that we would always stop there on the way up to Sierra Lodge.
Oh yeah, it's always the bathroom break place for other ministry groups.
And we got hosted many times actually, you know, by the Davis Church. And then I knew, you know, Pastor Will and Esther who led our college group when we were undergrads, but then they went on to lead the Davis Church, I think, when you were there, right? And so,
Pastor Jonathan and Susanna had just left, and Pastor Will and Esther came up. So thank you for releasing them to us.
Yeah. So that's my connection with the Davis Church. But what was your impression of like the church there, kind of when you first came in?
Yeah, my impression of Davis Church when I first came was that there was like a lot of old people.
Wow.
But then still like, I don't know, they're still trying to like serve and be active and stuff. Because then in the church I grew up in, like when people become old, it's almost like they'll still like delegate and direct, but it's like not with the like as much zeal. It's kind of like, oh, it's okay if you don't like get up and like serve the same amount as like everybody else. But then what I found with like Davis Church is I would say that everyone was still trying to serve in some way, shape, or form, no matter like, I guess what they were going through or what stage of life they were at. And that was a thing that like stood out to me. I was like, oh, there's no sense of like, no one's trying to like slow down here. They're just really trying to like love God, love people. My impression of that was just, I'm like, oh, it just seems so upside down from like my previous church experience. And I'm like, oh, like there's something a little bit different about the way that they're trying to like live out their lives for God.
Yeah. And so maybe it's not even that the Davis Church was so old, because actually when I think about Davis Church at that time, I don't think they were actually that old.
Yeah.
Like it's maybe because I would assume even the church that you grew up going to probably had more old people, right? It's just that
people pushing 90.
Right, exactly. It's just I think what you're experiencing was that as a college student, the people interfacing with you were older than maybe you would have expected.
Yeah,
right?
They're engaged in ministry.
Right, they're engaged in ministry and they're still running around with college students and that experience, like that I think is unique because it's sort of like, like I've heard actually other churches say the shelf life of a college preacher is 10 years. So I am actually disqualified because that means at 31 you have to retire as a college pastor, but I am 32. So
wow, it's like the NFL or something.
you know, and you know, I mean that's not a strict rule, but I've heard people say that, right? But I think what you're describing there is sort of something that I think I love about our church, which is that as people get older, it's not like oh I served my time and so now you know I don't have to like serve anymore. It's like no, like I'm gonna push harder. I'm gonna find new ways to serve and kind of unique ways in which I can still contribute to the mission at hand. So yeah. So kind of as you came into our church, like I think we all go through a period where you know, like the church is sort of a college church that you're attending while you're here to like becoming my church. Like, oh, actually, these are my people. Like, how did that transition happen for you?
Yeah, for me, that happened. I think it was the summer between my junior and senior year. I went on a vision trip to the East Coast led by Pastor Will. And during that trip, I mean, everyone still felt like my tribe, my family, going into it. But I think the fact that we were just trying to share the gospel almost 24/7 and everyone's sleep deprived. And we even had a lice outbreak and there's different things happening.
Oh my gosh. That's
In the
the
middle of
worst.
a mission trip.
Yeah, nothing brings people closer.
Wow,
Well,
real
no.
bonding. That's very bonding.
It was, bonding in many ways, many
So you had
unexpected
to
ways.
delouse each other's
Yeah,
hair.
like
and
you
stuff.
went through each other's hair.
That
too.
comb
Oh
through
my
it, right?
gosh.
Like,
And the guys had to do it too because some people had long hair.
Ew.
How long does it have to be in order?
Not as long as Agape's when he was.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. And we were staying in the same big house and everything. So we had to disinfect. Anyway, but going through just a lot of, just that together, the lice and stuff, but also just reaching out to people and it's feeling hesitant to go towards that one student, but it's nah, man, let's go. It's okay, let's go.
Nice. Yeah.
And going through that together, somehow that really forged all of us. And I feel even to today, I feel really close with everybody who went on that trip. And I was this is what I would want to do for the rest of my life. As much as I, am someone who likes tasks. I like work. I like career and stuff. I was I think this is the thing though that my life ought to be about, that God's calling me to do, regardless of what I do after I graduate. And then I was just I could just stay here. So it was during that trip, between junior and senior year, where I was I'm not going anywhere. And I decided this is where I'm gonna stay. Yeah.
Oh, so that was part of your decision to stay at our church, kind of experiencing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Are there other things throughout undergrad years that you said yes to, or kind of, what are other ways that you grew? So that vision trip seems like it was a really kind of pivotal moment for you, but were there other things that you did? Either big things or more kind of regular things?
Yeah. So then, one thing I had to give up in college that a lot of college students have is time. So then I realized in order to free myself up to serve a little bit, I actually gave up I gave up my vice presidency of one of my engineering clubs. And actually that freed up more time than I thought. I was wow, it was a part-time job.
Oh, you were really busy doing that.
Yeah. With that time before Sundays, we did this thing called soft serve, or sophomores serving. Mm-hmm. So then, we did things
a lot of ice cream references.
I know.
Soft serve,
Major
scoop. Who's the leader over there? Anyways, sorry. Continue on. Soft serve. Uh-huh.
And with that, we would go to elderly care homes, and sometimes we were rerouted and asked to go to help out with inner high, which is little smaller scale services for kids in churches that can't provide that kind of service to the kids.
Yeah, like a youth service.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was just, during those times where I was I remember going into it at first, I was I'm not that excited about kids. I'm not that excited about older people either. But once I actually started interacting with everybody, I was oh, wow. These people are so precious to God. And I think in that way also God was trying to refine the way that I was viewing people and just seeing regardless of what anyone can bring to the table or whatever, just as they are, God just loves them immensely. Yeah. That was one way where I was oh, I thought I was going to die.
Participating?
Yeah.
In soft
but then I was no, I think, part of the way through it, I was I was looking forward to it, and it didn't even feel burdensome anymore. I was just happy to be a part of that, and that I could be with people in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think that's a common experience at our church, and I appreciate your honesty saying, I don't really like the old people, and I don't really like the kids either. And because the thing is okay, so then what should I do? not serve. But actually, I think my experience, as well as the experience of many people, is that when you try to just love people, when you invest in people, you end up loving them in the end. Like you end up caring about them, right? And then you end up, I think, connecting with God's heart, right? Because God's heart is for the elderly, or whatever ministry it is, right? God's heart is for these kids, and then you kind of experience a little bit of God's heart, and it's like it's a very worshipful experience, as well as a kind of a heart growing experience, right? So, so do you? I have on my notes here. It says Grandma Marie. Could you? What's that? Could you tell me about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, in Davis Church, I'm known as like Grandma or Baba Marie, and that's because, actually a lot of stuff happened sophomore year. There was a sophomore year a camping trip that actually Rob Shee led.
Oh, Rob Shee's one of my peers. Yes.
Yeah, he's crazy, but he's so fun.
Yes, Rob, if you're listening, you're crazy, but you're fun.
Yes. Yes, and I was trying to like sleep in the tent, and there was I think it was actually overstuffed with people. With sisters, because it was mostly guys, and then some of the girls went anyway. So in the tent I was in, like there was a rock that was like sticking up, and then it was really cold. I don't think I brought enough like layers, and I didn't sleep that entire night. By 5 a.m. I was like, you know what? Forget this. I'm just gonna beat Mother Nature. So then I got ready and I worked out. For like an hour or something. And then I was doing like my cool down routine. And then I see one of the staff bros, Phil Choi, who's part of our Maryland church now, come out of the brothers tent. And I was like, oh, whatever. It's just Phil. I'm going to keep doing my thing. And then a few hours later during breakfast, Phil's like telling everyone who's coming to like grab food. He's like, hey guys, I saw like this old woman just like exercising by herself. It was like really sad. Like, I don't know who, he just kept like saying different things. And Phil and I have like this like joking relationship with each other. So I thought he was just being like playful with me. But then he kept telling like everybody who was coming. And I was like, Phil, that was me. And he was like, I'm so sorry.
So he really thought it was a random old woman.
He didn't know it was me.
Ouch.
But you were a sophomore in college.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And in my defense, I tell people like, it was when I was stretching is when he came out of the tent.
Yeah. Not when you were doing the vigorous exercising. Yeah.
So is there a reason that's stuck though? Because that one story alone, might not perpetuate Grandma Marie, but like, are there other reasons why that stuck?
Yeah. So it was like, because of that trip, everyone started calling me like Grandma Marie after that. And then, I would also say I'm kind of an old soul.
Okay, this is true.
Yeah.
Yes. We all know this. We all know this. Yeah.
Yeah. When I food prep, actually, I like to listen to Elvis's gospel tracks.
Oh my God.
And then I stopped after a while. I haven't done it unless I'm by myself, because everyone kept giving me feedback like I'm feeling sleepy. We need some heavy bass or like some uppity music when we're food prepping. I'm like,
funny.
oh, sorry.
Marie, you got to tell your Insta story.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yes, that one too. So I was having good conversation with like this one freshman, and we were like connecting. And I was like, what if like we exchange numbers? And then she's just like, oh, let me just have your Insta. And I was like, oh, I don't have an Instant Pot, but I have this thing.
And she meant Instagram.
She meant Instagram.
And of course, all our listeners know that.
But Marie.
But she thought Insta was the Instapot.
Oh my gosh.
And also in my defense of that story, I always say like, oh, we were talking about cooking and different different like Dutch ovens and stuff like that. So
this is why you're Grandma Marie.
This is why you're Grandma
yes.
Marie. Oh man, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then my friend, and then the Mama Marie kind of came a little bit later, because like whenever I like baked or tried out new recipes and stuff, like I would feed it to like my housemates, and then kind of around the corner there were like other people who lived nearby and stuff. So then like I would always just like feed people like as an undergrad. So then a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're just like really motherly."
Yeah.
So that stuck.
Yeah,
That's funny.
that's funny. So you were at Davis for how many years is that? So you
I was a
entered
freshman in 2012. Yeah.
and you moved out here in 2020.
Yes.
So you were there for 8 years.
I was.
At the Davis Church. And I know that like coming out here, there was not a lot of like relationships, that you had, prior. Like, what do you do to keep up with people that you've had all these memories with, and kind of what do you do to try to keep up with them?
Yeah. One thing I try to do to keep up with the people in my previous relationships in Davis Church is I always try to like text them when it's their birthdays or when it's their kids' birthdays. And like if it's a single house, sometimes I'll also just try like DoorDash something or just like FaceTime in order to like say like, oh, like, yeah, what's going on with you? And like, yeah, how's your birthday so far? And things like that. And then, whenever I visit, I've tried to visit Davis twice since like moving out here, but it's always during like, the holidays. So actually a lot of people I know are gone. The last 2 times it was kind of a fail. Everyone was gone. But yeah, when I can, I do try to like, go in person to like see people too.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat because some of the Davis folks like moved out here to the Midwest after you came, because like the entire Urbana-Champaign team, they're from Davis and things like that. So like that's one of the things that I saw in Marie, like when you came out to Chicago, you're kind of like reserved. And then the times that you would like really light up is when you knew you were going to see like old Davis people, and then all these stories would come out about your Davis days. So that's kind of something that was neat for me to see, that you get so excited and like, wow, you must have had some strong relationships, in the Davis Church, and how that still excites you like today. And then it's kind of neat that, like we get to gather at Midwest Lodge or something sometimes for rallies. And I just see Marie just make a beeline for the Davis people. I'm like, see you later, Marie.
No, there's something
special.
about that that's really, really sweet and special, and kind of, like all the Berkeley people, I know it must be kind of hard actually, because we're always making Berkeley references, and
LA
then
references,
if Marie makes a Davis reference, everyone's
we don't know what you're talking about.
you know what it sounds like? It sounds like this.
Oh my gosh, you finally got to use your Cricut.
I got it. Yeah, I've been using it more regularly actually.
That is accurate.
Yeah. So then when kind of we have a chance to kind of get a peek into Marie's world, through interfacing with the Davis people, I think that's that's really neat. And it just shows you like the memories you make as a college student, as well as those years out of college. Like it's really formative, right? And it's stuff that you're gonna hold on to for the rest of your life, right? And we should, right? We should remember kind of our roots, and where we came from, and the people that were involved in that. So appreciate that. So then let's talk about your transition. Then we started talking about that transition to Chicago. So you moved out here after you got married to Agape.
Yes, the day after we got married.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that first. That's a very interesting topic. Let's talk about Agape. Agape is an interesting topic. So what is it like being married to Agape? You're the only one who has that perspective. So.
I'll say, being married to Agape, life feels very full and unpredictable. But
because you guys are super different.
Yeah.
I mean, Marie is an INTJ, actually, just like
all
me and Katarina. We're all INTJs. We like predictability, and we like
order.
to plan and have like order in our lives. And Agape is not an INTJ. So, yeah.
He has other strengths.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're gonna have a marriage episode, but hey, since you're here and I brought it up anyways, like, so what's been like a learning for you? Like, what's something that you've learned through being married to someone who's like very different from you?
When learning, I was like kind of journaling about the other day, is just how, I appreciate how with Agape, he really wants to resolve things. Like whenever we, disagree or like fight about something, he can't move on to the next thing, and he'll make sure that like, things are like fully like resolved before we move on. Whereas me, I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh, there's like this meeting, or oh, like there's like let's resolve later. And he's like, no, like right now, we can just tell them that we'll be late.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think in that example, both like the whole idea of just resolving and making sure relationally that like we're good. He also is like okay with changing the plan if needed, because like relationships and like our relationship in particular is like that important to him. So then I'm always like, really like surprised when that happens, but also like really thankful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's a very good compliment, because INTJs love to finish their tasks and their projects and all the things that they had planned on doing. But, for Agape, when he feels that tension and he's like, oh, we need to work this out, like that becomes priority number 1A for him. So
1A.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys were getting married, and then you were gonna move out here the day after you got married, right? And then this was in the middle of the pandemic, like the worst of the pandemic. So how were you feeling about that transition? Because that's a big transition, and you had multiple big transitions. You were like transitioning job, getting married, marital status, and new ministry team, and you were part of international ministry before, right? And so you were jumping into college ministry.
Oh yeah.
And you moved halfway across the country
in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah. Cool. How was that?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be kind of rough, but I think, I tell everyone that the fact that it happened during the pandemic was actually a blessing in disguise, because I got to hang out with you two and like the rest of our team, both during the daytime in addition to like our actual meeting times, and I got to know people like relatively fast because of that. With the whole like getting used to Chicago and stuff, I didn't really tour around because everything was closed.
You went to the Bean like
last
very
year
recently, for the first time. That's
like
right.
2 years after you moved.
So then, the fact that I was with everybody every day and getting used to small church plant life, just and never being alone. I actually never felt like lonely. I did have moments of missing people. And it's so funny that some of them are in Urbana now and they're only 2 hours away. But I think overall it went well because I was always like with people, and ultimately it's also because like just trying to trust God, because before Agape was in the equation, I did try sign up for 2017 church planting, but I had like 2 more classes or something. I graduated later technically, so then I couldn't go that round, but there was always like this like pent up desire, like, I want to do like something crazy for God too, to like this extent of like moving to a completely new, unfamiliar place. So I think like, head and heart wise, I was somewhat like anticipating it for a while. So then, even before, well, I guess I moved because Agape and I are married, but
but then with that, you got a chance to also kind of scratch that itch to want to do something for God, and you got to come out here. And like you were saying, I think it's actually kind of neat that you guys came during COVID, the pandemic, and as kind of stressful and hard as that time was, I think in terms of our team's formation, that was a really, really crucial time. I think we were all gonna always look back on that time with kind of a sense of fondness. Because it's just, even now it's not the same anymore. Like, half the team has to go in at least part of the time to work, and and so things are back to normal ish, which is good. But then that time of literally seeing each other every day, because we all work together too. Like that was awesome.
Yes, actually one of my first memories of you when you did come to Chicago was you guys came into my house and Agape said that line that he says to like everybody, which is,
have you met my wife?
Have you met my wife? This is my wife. We're like, we know. And you said that yesterday too. But he was so excited, and then apart from that though, I just remember you like saw Lucas. He was just born, right? Or something like that. And you were like, a baby. And then you asked, can I hold him? I haven't touched a baby in so long. Because it was pandemic, I guess, in Davis. And I was like, oh, she's going to be fine. She's going to she'll transition
She'll
just
be
fine.
fine
And
here.
she'll get close to people here just fine. And I just remember that being like, okay, yeah, like we're all going to get close. It's good,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I am really thankful for that time because I didn't realize I was gonna have that reaction to Lucas. Like I knew you just had a baby, but I was like, oh, when I was like, oh, I really miss my baby fever, holding a baby.
So it's very cool because, like even for me, it's like I had a baby in the middle of the pandemic at the height of it. But like because people like Marie and, all these other sisters and brothers on our team were over all the time, we just became like a social bubble, and so that was, I think, really formative in terms of like why we enjoy the relationships we do now. It's just because we saw each other like 24/7 and somehow the pandemic like helped that instead of like, impeding it somehow.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what was different coming to Chicago? Was there anything different? Like, okay, of course there's something different. So what was different? What was different coming to Chicago?
One of the things that was different was that's safer in Davis.
Oh yeah, just in terms of the city. Oh yeah.
Oh, true.
Davis is people don't know. People
beautiful.
don't know Davis. Like they just think of like cows and farms but I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't really know Davis actually until 2019 when we went there for a vision trip. And it's beautiful, man. It's like a
really
nice suburb. There are parts of it that smell, but like, man, it's like a nice, safe, suburban
and the campus too.
college town.
Beautiful.
Campus is really like modern and beautiful. Anyways, I don't know why I'm like hyping up Davis right now, but yes. But compared to that, Hyde Park is definitely more dangerous.
Yeah, because a lot of my memories actually with many people is just having lingering car conversations, both driving somewhere and then just like parking and then like talking for a while. I'm like, nope, when we park in Chicago, just gotta get inside.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah, that's one of our internal kind of staff recommended practices, which is that don't linger in your car. Actually, that's just generally true. If you're in Chicago, you shouldn't like linger in your car, especially at nighttime. And this was during the pandemic when there was an increase in carjackings.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like since it's mostly just like our team, I also kind of miss having what me and my housemates would do in Davis is like invite like a different family every week over for like our family nights. And I'm like, and then I would get inspired or like hear how things are going in like this ministry and this ministry and just be like, there was kind of a strength that came from that. And then it's like, oh, here it's like, oh, okay, have one more person who I saw like yesterday come over.
Yeah. It's like you already see each other so much.
Yeah.
It's like, what's new from yesterday?
Even though we have an international team here too, but actually we see each other pretty often. So yeah, that is true. It's like, what's new since yesterday? Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. No, that's really neat though. The picture that you painted of like, here's a house of sisters and just kind of having people over and just trying to connect. And that's the kind of stuff that you'll need to do when you have a larger church, right? And my hope and prayer is that Chicago church gets to that point one day where, it's big. It's kind of, you get to a size where you can't see everyone all the time. So then that kind of intentionality is what you need in order to still remain something that feels like the Acts 2 church, right? Yeah. So I appreciate that picture. Anything else come to mind in terms of like any kind of differences coming to Chicago, whether it's the city or the church out here?
Well, I would say also since there's not that many kids, so even though how I said earlier that the rotations for things are kind of smaller on a small church plant, I'm like, oh, the scale of like how many kids are here is not that bad.
Yeah.
Davis has 3 is the new 2 during the pandemic. Like many families have 3 kids now.
3 kids. Yeah.
What is that? It's like, oh, pandemic. There's nothing to do. Let's just have another kid.
No.
Is that because of the pandemic? Or?
I don't know. I think it's just people are okay with having 3 kids. I don't know. Maybe everyone's making more money.
3 kids?
I don't know.
Yeah. Be fruitful and multiply. So.
So a lot of it, is the difference. It has to do with like who I'm seeing and like how frequently I see them and stuff like that. And even for the new grads, I really adore and am thankful for Nezzy, Ed, and Giselle because I love that everyone is so close since our church is so like small and like tight knit that they're like, oh yeah, can I come over and just like hang or read or cook with you or something. And then like I know I can also just go over to their places. With Davis, it's like everything's always like by class because there's just, so like a lot of people in each class. So then I remember, the new grads would always kind of like be separate and like be trying to even like get to know and hang out with each other in like like post-grad, as they're all post-grads now. Yeah. So then that was also like a difference I noticed as well.
Yeah, here we do, we don't emphasize class as much here, including the new guys. We're just kind of like one big happy family. So we see each other. We don't say like, you're a sophomore and I'm not with the sophomores all the time. So like, I'm just not going to see you. Like, yeah, it's true. I think the fact that we kind of live all close together and then the students like come over to different staff's houses and each other's homes, like I think that's pretty special right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the benefits to being a smaller church. But then, when you get to be a larger church, you do need a little bit of that like structural organization so that people don't feel lost, right? Because if you have like 200 people and like it's all like, amorphous and you just hang out with whoever you want to hang out with, then
then it could turn into a type of church that you kind of described at the very beginning, like how you grew up, like you're in and out and no one really knows if you were there or not. But we wouldn't want to become that kind of church.
So then what you do is you create a bunch of smaller churches, so to speak, inside, right? And those people will really focus on getting to know each other. So okay, well let's transition to kind of our last topic. When I asked you kind of what's something you're passionate about, something that you feel like you can talk about. You mentioned cooking, so tell us a little bit about that. Like cooking. Like how did you get into that in the first place?
Yeah, so it goes all the way back to 4th grade. I would fight with my sister a lot for the TV remote. So then my parents were like, you know what? We're just going to cut you guys off from cable. So then I'm pretty sure they just wanted to save money or something, but that's what they told us. And we didn't fight over the remote anymore. And then when we did watch TV, I watched a lot of like news and CSI, all of those like shows that are kind of like on like free channels. And then there was also PBS. On that channel, there was this one show called America's Test Kitchen. Yay! I should be America's Test Kitchen like advocate.
Yeah.
They should give me a free apron.
Because you got me into it too. And now I benefit. Yeah.
Yeah, and they take a very like sciencey but also crowdsourced approach to like food. Like they have 10 recipes for like chocolate chip cookies, depending if you want it chewy or if you want it thin, or like just different techniques and stuff to get you the result that you want. So then by 6th grade, my parents bought me the family cookbook for America's Test Kitchen, and I still have that book. I brought it with me to Chicago. I still reference and use it today when I want to try out or experiment with new recipes. So that's how it all started.
Yeah. So what is it about cooking? Like, I mean, cooking is a huge part of, church life. We constantly eating, right? So, a lot of people at our church end up, learning how to cook, but there's some people who enjoy it more than others, right? And so what is it that you enjoy about cooking?
Yeah. So when I first started cooking, even now I enjoy sort of like the R&D aspect to it, as much as it's like scientific and a lot of chemistry, especially with the baking part. I also think it's kind of like an art, and there's a lot of creative freedom that anyone can have, and you can cater certain foods to certain people, and just be able to like love on them in that way. So that's something about cooking that I love.
Yeah, and then what? So can we talk a little bit about like so I mean, people cook, right? And there's one thing to cook for yourself or for like your household. Yeah. But then there's I think cooking for a church is like a whole nother thing, right? Like it's like a whole nother ball game. So what are some of the differences that you've noticed like over the years? Maybe just starting from your time at Davis, because I'm sure you cooked for much bigger events out there, or or helped out with that and things like that. So what is like a difference between just cooking for yourself and cooking for church?
Yeah, I think with cooking for myself, I take a lot of liberty, and and there's more freedom to be like, okay, if it tastes bad, then like it's fine. It just affects me. But then, when I was back in Davis and leading food teams for, 200 plus serving for people and stuff, it's like, I'm not going to do that same thing of trying out let's try out this new spice, because it affects like so many more people. And so in that way, it's like thinking about the, I don't know how to say it, like the audience or like the people that like who are going to eat the food, and just thinking of like, maybe even different dietary needs or like, level of spiciness, and like just taking into consideration more things so that to make sure they can kind of like actually enjoy the meal that they're going to have, and make sure it's like flavorful, but like, obviously like I really love spicy food actually, but I always on purpose don't like put that much because I know some people like, don't like it as much.
Yeah, I mean, cooking for groups or cooking for church, I think that is one huge way to love people, because you actually have to consider your audience, like you're saying, and like, how do I make it like enjoyable for everybody as much as I can, but I have to take them like into consideration. And that's something that it's like one way that someone can grow in terms of loving people, because you have to think about them and not yourself, And so cooking for church has actually grown me a lot, And but for some people who maybe are not there yet, or like they don't even like find it all that enjoyable to cook for themselves, like, can you encourage them with some stories of maybe mistakes you made like while you were learning how to cook?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. I love saying these stories because like if I didn't make mistakes, then I like wouldn't have gotten better. One of the stories I always like to share is I think it was my first year out of college. Actually, I don't know if people know like Judge Hensley. He's part of our church in Charlottesville now. He asked me to take over one of the like food planning docs he had, and he like already pre-measured everything. I just had to like put everything together. I think it was like a tikka masala or something. But I put it all in, and then I was just like, man, it's not that good. So then I was like, oh, how to make this better? And I saw that like a different ministry group in the 607 kitchen, like in our church building in Davis, left a bunch of like Japanese curry blocks, and I was like, ooh, maybe this.
Oh gosh.
So we added that, and then we served it to 90 people, 90 college students.
Did that go well?
Judge looked really angry. I was like,
this is not tikka masala curry.
He had like raised eyebrows, kind of like what is this?
That's so funny.
You're like, it's the same color.
Sorry, Judge, if you're listening.
That's funny. Okay, well, I have to tell this story about Judge if we're gonna, because I have connections with Judge too. Because Judge was a junior. So the person that Marie's talking about, he was a junior when I was a freshman.
In the same ministry group.
In the same ministry group as us in Berkeley, and so he really took care of us. Actually, I love Judge, and he's the one who started to help me start do DTs my sophomore year. He's the one, you guys may have heard this story, but he's the one that would buy us bagels in the morning and meet with us, and I'd go and eat the bagel and then fall asleep during DTs. So that's Judge. But my freshman year, the juniors, they were helping out with the Frosh Life group, and so I remember it was a very memorable dinner because they brought kalbi. It was Korean short rib. Like, it's like, this is an expensive meat. It's good stuff. Yeah. And I think Judge and his friends were in charge of the food prep for that. And so I think what happened was that they had decided, we're going to be like on top of it. And so we're going to cook it early in the day. So then they like cooked everything. And then I think what they did is they stuck it in the fridge, and then they didn't reheat it.
Ew.
So when the kalbi came to small group time, it was all coagulated and covered in yellow fat.
Did you guys eat it?
But we loved it. No, I mean, we were just brutish college freshmen, so we're like, kalbi, cold kalbi. So I mean, we ate it all, but I think that I'm sure that Judge was not happy about what happened there personally. But I was still very thankful for it. But anyways,
people can be blessed even through
even through the mistakes. Yeah, so some student is sharing on some podcast out there about the tikka masala that tasted like Japanese curry. So it's all good.
People kept coming up to me, and then there was like one other person who was helping out, and they were like, "Oh, this is like a really flavorful curry." And in my head, I kept just being like, "It's not supposed to be curry. It's supposed to be tikka masala."
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and I was thinking about like cooking at our church. Yeah, because I know people who love to cook. But then they'll take like 3 hours to cook and then 3 hours to clean up, and you know what I mean. And I think at our church we really, really value like working fast as well. And so I think this art of cooking for large groups of people in a short amount of time, cost efficiently,
without so much stress,
and kind of being able to deploy a team of people in a way so that you're both cooking and cleaning at the same time, so that when you're done cooking, like you've already pretty much cleaned everything too. Like it's that art, which is like this really intricate and beautiful dance when done well is pretty amazing actually. So, and I've seen so many of our older leaders kind of navigate that and kind of model that for us. And I think in Chicago church, again, like it's not too complicated, this kind of stuff that we do right now, but occasionally when we have those big events like at Midwest Lodge and stuff like that, I mean, we get chances to do that. So Marie, like if any of our listeners they feel maybe daunted by cooking, where would you suggest they start? Because I do think it's a very important life skill that everyone should try to learn. So where would you suggest they start?
Yeah, one suggestion I have if you're just starting out with cooking is to like do one recipe and do it well. Like you have it down to a T to the point where you don't even need to look at the recipe. You just feel confident enough to feel it out, like maybe taste as you go and stuff. And then you start putting in variations and thinking of ways to use those same ingredients to make it like a side dish. And another thing I used to do was because Costco's great. Actually, the Davis staff would always take me and my friends to Costco, and that's how we would able to get a lot of ingredients. So then I would just take a big thing of some type of vegetable and just be what's something different I can do to it throughout this week to make it a completely new thing. Yeah. And again, all of these, they don't have to be complex Michelin star recipes. It's just stuff that's it's decently tasty, and I think in that way you can if you get a lot of reps in doing that, then you'll feel a little bit more confident to try reach out and actually cook for people.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have anything to add to that, Kat?
Yeah, I mean, for me, even starting with one recipe and getting good at it, that was actually daunting for me because I didn't like cooking at the beginning and I like cooking now. But for me, I had to have someone older show me, or it didn't have to be older, but someone who's better in the kitchen. And that required a little bit of humility for me to say I'm not good in the kitchen. And so I would just attach myself to people who were, and then I just see the techniques they use to chop and process food, and even how to be efficient in the kitchen so that you're not stressed out. All of that, I really enjoy that piece now, but I had to see it being done. So for me, I think I'd say if you're in Chicago, come over to our place, come over to Marie's place. We'll show you how to cook. We'll do it together. We like it. We like doing it together. So, I mean, if anybody really can come and we'll just do it together.
Yeah. And my personal experience on this is that for me, I actually lack motivation to make nicer food or because actually I'm very simple when it comes to food. I actually just want large quantities and my favorite meal, one of my favorite meals to this day is just rice and egg. It's I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I think I'm broke. Yeah. Unnecessary detail, Kata.
It's okay, DP. Agape does that too sometimes.
Yeah. One more similarity between me and Agape. But yeah, so actually for me, how we started to cook was our friends inviting people over, right? Hosting people. It was when I was cooking for other people that motivated me to, okay, I'll try out a new dish, or let me figure out how to make this better. Because personally, I just don't care all that much, right? So then that was a part of that equation for me. So, okay. Well, we are over an hour already, so we're gonna try to wrap things up. But do you have, Marie? Do you have any questions for us, just based on anything we talked about today? We'll do the reverse Q&A part.
Sure. I was wondering if you guys could also share about maybe some cooking mishaps or mistakes that you made, but then how it helped you become a better cook.
Oh yeah, there's this one time I was in charge of making rice for a small group dinner.
Rice is actually really hard.
So I don't know how much this is my fault versus the rice cooker's fault. I mean, it's both, but basically what happened is that I did the rice, I measured it, I put the water in, and then the entire thing came out like in one piece, like, and the bottom was burnt black.
Ooh.
So it was like a giant piece of dried rice came out at the end, like burnt dried.
You made rice
And
cake.
and I think there was something like one of the plates on the top, like the top plate was missing, but I don't know what happened, man. That shouldn't. Yeah. So I was
For a
like,
small group?
I was. Yeah. It was for. I think I was under John Chow or something. I forget which grouping it was, but I'm pretty sure it was with the class of 2015. Yeah, in Berkeley. So that was that's one of my food mishaps. Where, yeah. Since then, I've never made a mistake on rice. After I double check everything after
Now you're
that.
like paranoid.
Yeah,
Nice.
paranoid
That's
with
good.
the rice. Yeah.
That's good. Mine was right when I graduated. Me and my peer class as new grads, we were in charge of the staff dinner, which was about 60 people in A2F at that time, and so we took turns like trying to provide the dinner, by grade, by class, I guess, graduating class. My friends and I were tasked with curry, again, Japanese curry, and we had chicken in the curry. We made the curry, and then I think we went out to play sports or something. So we pre-made the curry, but we left it on the stovetop, and it was a very hot day that day. And
no.
we left it on the stovetop with no heat on, so it was residual heat. So we just thought that'd be okay. And then we came back in from playing sports or something, and then we served it, and it was so hot that it started like bubbling on its own, and the chicken had shredded so much inside because of the residual heat that when one of the older brothers, like he went into the curry pot to get a thing in for himself, and he was like, "Oh, what kind of noodle is this?" And we're like, "It's chicken." And he was like, "That's gross." So then the next week we had to do it again. So that we could learn from our mistakes, so that we could like
man.
try again. So that was painful because it was like a lot of us actually, like at least one of us might have, been sensible enough to say like, yeah, let's not leave it out like that on residual heat on a hot day. But we learned.
Yeah, that's funny. As we're talking, I remembered another story. So one of the dishes I used to make a lot for ministry was carbonara. Just the 5 fat pasta, so good. Yes, I made it a lot. But then there's one time we were again doing like a small group thing, and we had a rotation. It was me and another brother and 2 sisters, and we kind of co-led this small group. And so it was my turn to. I usually did the content, but then it was my turn to cook for that week, and we were gonna do it outdoors. But this was my first time doing the carbonara and bringing it outdoors, so I didn't take that into consideration, and so. By the time I brought the pasta was fine when I cooked it. By the time I brought it to the event and the event started, because it was like cold for California standards, it was like probably 50s that day or something. So everything got coagulated.
Oh, look,
the coagulating theme. So then I remember one of the sisters came to me afterwards. She's like, DP, maybe I'll just cook next time. Like,
you do the content.
Okay. I'll take that as feedback. Yeah. So, we've been through our fair share of mistakes,
Yes.
but, you just got to keep trying, and then you'll keep growing. So,
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's it for today. Well, thanks, Marie, for coming on. How was that? Your
It was
first
fun.
experience? Oh, it's good. Yeah. So we'll also have you on again sometime. All right.
Thanks, Marie.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Marie.
you.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to today's episode of D-Pod. And that concludes all of the U Chicago domestic staff. But don't worry. We have more episodes coming out. I have stuff planned. I heard that some of you think that I'm running out of ideas. I'm talking to you, Chizura. But yeah, no, don't worry. We got stuff planned. All right. Bye-bye.